Welcome to Monday Morning with Mike and Max. I'm Mike Bledsoe, your host, with co-host Max Shank over there on the other side, drugging his dogs.
That's all the context you need. Send your hate mail right on over. That's the way it goes now. Who needs context when you have completely taken out of context content?
Oh, for sure. For sure. You know, some people are more susceptible to it than others. We were hanging out with a couple this past weekend, and they both they're in the celebrity space, and she was just like, "He's going to be taken out of context. I know it. He says all these things that are taken out of context. He needs to watch himself." And I don't know. He'll probably get canceled eventually.
What is a celebrity space?
People who are starring in television and movies.
Oh, like an actor. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like a popular actor.
Yeah, like somebody's who's in real movies that you find at the theater, and then another person who is TV personality. So
it's interesting when someone's face is so crazy recognizable to a tremendous amount of people. Right? And isn't that's the way you get paid also typically? It's like how much screen time you have, like how long your face is on the screen.
It's an interesting life. I'm sure. I got a taste of it. I remember going to the CrossFit Games in like 2015, 2016, when everybody in that, I go to a stadium where there's, I don't know how many people would be there, 60, 70, 80,000 people, and almost everybody recognized me. And I couldn't walk 10 feet without getting stopped and taking a picture and this and that. And it was exhausting. But that was like one weekend of my life where I was quote unquote famous. I mean, think about like Mel Gibson, Brad Pitt, one of these people who they can't even go to the grocery store without getting hounded, I'm sure. Is a totally different thing. I knew a celebrity trainer in Hollywood who, like, he was real like never post my address, don't show the front of my house what it looks like, because I won't even name. Yeah, he was training.
The paparazzi would come get him.
Exactly. He's like, one of the reasons that he is a celebrity trainer is because he's very good at keeping secrets. He doesn't tell you who he's training. He doesn't display. Yeah, he doesn't display much, and that's why celebrities have to hang out with people who don't care that they're celebrities.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah,
that trainer's probably got a 500-page notebook for a tell-all when he retires from training. He's just harvesting data for the big reveal.
I won't even tell you the guy's name who's the trainer, and I won't talk about who he's training because I mean that's how
that's respectful.
Tight it
that's
gets.
Respectful. I think that's good.
Yeah. So how's your week been going?
Well, begrudgingly drugging my dogs so they don't tear apart their surgical sites and so they can continue the healing. Because despite my best efforts to tell my dogs to quit being dogs, they just keep wanting to be dogs. So they got the cones on their heads, which is good. But I'm also saying things like, don't run, don't jump, don't lick each other, don't bark. I'm trying to tell them, hey, don't be a dog. And they're like, what are you, out of your fucking mind? Like, this makes no sense. So for their healing, we have to keep the cones on, and we have to sedate them during the day. And it's I hate it. I hate doing it. But it's been a really interesting week. Last week you were mentioning that you had you'd been doing a media fast. So I decided to jump headfirst into doing the same thing. And through my note taking over the past week, I realized that's sort of been a pattern of mine. I either do nothing or I do something to a ridiculous extreme. So for the past week, I've been doing. So I started eating chicken on Monday. So I did a 3-day fast, and I just reintroduced plain chicken. But so I did a no food fast. I just did water, salt, magnesium, which is always a nice reset anyway. But then I also did no screens, no media, no music with lyrics, no books, no games. And it's just been one of the most insane experiments I've done before.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And I started to notice all of these habits that I have. My go-to my go-to pacifiers.
Mm-hmm.
And my go-to pacifiers are to listen to stand-up comedy and to play Go online, the board game.
Ah.
Those are my two top ones.
So now
And
you're
then
playing online. That's a different experience too.
yeah, I like that you can get such a variety. It's really hard unless you join an actual club to find enough people who are at your level.
Right.
Because
Kind
if
of
you're
like
way, way
chess.
better than someone, if you're way, way better, it's not that fun. If you're way, way worse, it's maybe only cool for you and not the other person.
Right.
Um, I realized I also look at Zillow as like a fantasy. And I told a few people about that. And I don't think I'm the only one.
You are not the only one.
So it's funny too, because I'll look at these places in Montana where I know for sure I don't want to live. I just like to briefly taste the fantasy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so basically, stripping everything away, all the pleasure levers except for writing and exercising are gone. I just recently started reintroducing playing music yesterday, but I just stripped it all completely down, and it was very interesting experience to say the least.
Nice. How far into it are you?
A week,
1 week. Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. The
So this is
yeah.
the first time I've opened my laptop since we
Whoa.
talked.
Wow. That's impressive. That's impressive. I love it. I love it. Any benefits?
No, I think I'm going insane. uh,
I had a
uh,
group of clients in one of my I've got a leadership class running right now, and I had a group of clients do a media fast last week, and one of the trends I saw is like the younger they were, the more emotionally taxing the media fast was.
and when you say media, you mean all types of media?
Yeah, books. Any I did allow music without lyrics. So you could play music, but we don't want anything with lyrics in it. So if you want to listen to
That's what
some
I'm doing.
jazz,
A lot of classical music.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I have one guy who's in his like mid 20s, and yeah, there's like in the middle of it, you could see he was just like the there's like a tantrum building up. It was great. I'm sure he'll listen to this.
It makes me think about all the pleasure levers and the pacifiers,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a great quote in Norm Macdonald's book. He's like, I went to the psychiatrist about my gambling problem, and the psychiatrist told me that I use gambling to escape the realities of life. And I said to him, that's why everybody does anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Accurate.
So the idea that there are pacifiers that are good and pacifiers that are bad, or that we treat some very differently than others. I'm not saying TikTok is the same as heroin. I'm saying you can probably tolerate even more of it than heroin.
Yeah. Well, the way I like to divide it up is, are you um even if it's an escape, you're talking about, some of these are seen as a more positive escape and some look negative. And the way I like to categorize it is, yeah, it's all an escape in some way. But in one case, you're creating, and in another case, you're wasting or destroying. And so if I'm going to lose myself into something, I'd rather, like for my students, I'd rather them lose themselves in their writing than for them to lose themselves on Instagram or TikTok or something like that. It's like that's there there's something creative happening in the process. And when you get into this when you get in this place where you're creating more than you're consuming, and that pendulum swings, and I think I'm more of like a teeter totter.
Yeah.
And like when you get to the tipping point to the other side and you're creating more than you're consuming, when you go back to consuming it, for me anyways, it seems kind of silly and ridiculous. The consumption, you're like, oh, I was just passing time. I wasn't doing anything. So I encouraged my students to do, with the media fast, is use that extra time to organize and create.
Yeah, creation is the the first passage in the I Ching, the Book of Changes. Creation is divinity by some definitions, and that balance of creation to consumption is really big. I would say one of the things I've noticed is that time goes way, way slower. Time feels like it's just crawling by.
When you're creating.
Uh, no, just in general, because I'm not doing
Oh,
anything
because you're
just
doing it
for.
fast.
I'm just not doing anything pleasure related. I'm also doing like a chastity fast as well.
Wow. Really going for
Yeah,
it.
I took all of the pacifiers off the table, all of the self soothing off the table, and tried to see what was left. And it turns out there's nothing left. there's nothing. There's nothing underneath it all.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is, one of the experiences I've been having recently is, having stripped a lot of that away and spending a lot more time in creation, less in consumption, is my days do seem a lot longer. They seem way longer, and I'm enjoying it. Like I'm having
Mm,
long, enjoyable days, and I think that's what we should be going for in life, right? Because so many people, as they get older, they go, "Oh, you wake up one day and it's all over, it's all done," and I totally get that. The older I get, the passage of time does seem to move a bit faster, and I don't think it
hmm
has to be that way. And I my experience of life right now is the days are pretty slow, and a lot gets done. And
mm,
I'm also like really getting into deep focus, doing that deep
hmm
work. A lot of times when people get into deep work, the time seems to pass really fast. But uh, at the end of the day, it still feels like a lot was done and a lot was lived.
Yeah, once you put yourself in that tunnel, you might stop, but you aren't going to get caught down another uh, distraction, right? So even if you're in that work, in that deep focus, you might break your focus for a minute, but you'll come right back to the task at hand.
Yeah.
And what you were saying with regard to living slow, basically, I thought the point was to rack up the high score. I thought that was the way you succeed at life. Like whoever dies with the most toys and whoever lives the most years. I think
Yeah.
that's to get a perfect score in life. You have to live to be 100 and you have to have $1 billion, and that's how you get a perfect score.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, did they not tell you that?
I think I'm on my way there. I'm not too worried about it. I think I'm going to land right on the B when I hit the 100.
Then you're going to get a perfect score, and then
Perfect
someone's
score.
going to say, "Good boy, Mike. Here, have a biscuit."
I'm really counting on hyperinflation to get me to the B.
Mike's got a billion Deutschmarks.
Oh, I've been like a deca-millionaire in certain places. It's
Yeah, the Democratic Republic of Congo
that's,
dollars.
yeah, I was it. Yeah, the poorest country. What was a? I'll tell you my poorest country. I want to hear your poorest country. Poorest country I've ever visited: Djibouti, Africa.
I was just talking to a guy who almost went to go be stationed there
Uh huh.
as an armorer,
Yeah,
and he's like, "No, they were going to give him 140 grand."
and it was probably tax free,
Oh yeah, no,
dude.
but I've never been to Djibouti.
Dude, it's yeah, it's bad.
What brought you there?
The Navy. Yeah,
Uh, there you go.
yeah, yeah.
Same,
The
same.
Navy. Uh huh. Yeah, we had been patrolling Somalia, so we decided to pull into Djibouti, which is right next door, to to have a few drinks, and yeah, it was pretty messed up. Some Marine
Mm.
base there.
There's bases everywhere.
Yes, there are. Yeah, yeah. The whole
Like
job of the Navy is to police the world. If anyone missed
if
that.
if you, I mean, don't do it, folks. But if you just start searching for where U.S. military bases are, it will blow your mind. They are
Yeah,
everywhere. They're way so many tentacles. Right? It's insane.
yeah. They're the concept when I was in the Navy was our the whole mission of the Navy is to have sea power. And the
Right.
way you achieve sea power is with presence. So if you just create a strong presence in as much of the world as possible, then that allows the cargo ships to deliver their goods and services without any problems.
Well, that's what weren't we talking about Pearl Harbor last week?
Man, I have no idea.
Maybe, but the whole idea. Speaking of content without context, in school in America, you learn that Pearl Harbor was this sneak attack to somehow justify dropping bombs, of which the size had never been seen before, on a bunch of civilians, and we were somehow the good guys in that. But we had been we had been uh,
You haven't been watching
ransacking.
enough movies, Max. Your brainwashing is wearing off.
I mean, it's
Watch
we're
more
the
TV, quick.
only we're the only country ever to have brought out some sort of mega bomb like that. As far as I know, if someone knows some history that I'm not privy to, that's fine. And just write on some towns, huge amounts of people dead. Uh, but we were, destroying their supply chains, and of course, we were at war. And their only chance was to disrupt that Navy presence that was basically hamstringing their supply chains. And so you take all the context out of it and they seem like bad, but if you look at it big picture, it's just two people at war, two countries at war, not people.
Yeah, I mean, it was a smart
And
move. They didn't know
right.
they were going to have a mega bomb.
Dude, it's wild to think about. Um yeah. Anyway,
All right, what's the lowest level country you've visited thus far? Just you got there, you're like, oh man, this is bad.
some parts of Mexico
Mm, yeah, some
were
parts of Mexico.
uh pretty rough.
Yeah.
Like there's one well type
Woo,
of thing.
woo.
It's like that's where all the water comes from, and it's the middle of the desert too.
Right.
Um, so this idea, I mean, speaking of supply chains, right? Like my dogs and I, we eat a lot of the same food. We're on the same diet, pretty much, just chicken. So we're just eating chickens. And I was thinking how difficult it would be to have enough chickens to feed just me and the dogs. I think I
Yeah.
would need like 100 rotating chickens so that some were always being raised and some were being eaten. it's obscene how many chickens we would need to support our
Yeah,
chicken habit.
yeah. You see that train wreck that happened? Was it Ohio this past
No, I
week?
haven't seen anything.
Oh, that's
I
right. You've
really
been on a
haven't seen
media
anything. It's
fast.
weird.
Yeah.
I
Well,
heard
so
the Super Bowl happened.
the Super Bowl did happen. I actually saw some of it. I was at a birthday party where it was on,
That's
and
cool.
yeah, yeah. It was it was interesting. I mean,
Mm.
watch them run really fast and catch balls. Um,
Gladiators tackle each other.
Modern day gladiators. Yeah.
Bread and circus. Did you have any good snacks?
Oh man, I ate so much popcorn and I smoked tobacco bags. That was about that was the
Nice.
extent of. Oh, I had some birthday cake. Had some birthday cake.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah,
very nice.
yeah. It was well, yeah. I don't know if I should say whose birthday it was. I can't talk about anybody. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's good. I don't think it adds anything to the podcast either. In fact, I think it's better if you say it was a really famous person that
yeah.
you can't say who it was. I'm going to start saying that about my friends, even if they're not. So I'm hanging out with my super ridiculously famous anonymous friend the other day. Really, it's just like Bob down the block.
Well, yeah. Anyways,
I should respect Bob's privacy too.
fucking Bob.
Fucking Bob.
I
Um,
started I started lifting weights again seriously this morning.
Snatch, clean and jerk.
No, not like that. I pulled some heavy deadlifts, some like hybrid. It was like between a sumo and a traditional, so wider stance, but you know, not quite full sumo. Trained with Alex Rybczynski, and I decided to get swole because he and I have, let ourselves go a little bit. We're both coaches. We've both been in the health and fitness game, and we've been busy. We still take care of our bodies, but we're not as strong and fast as we used to be. So we decided, you know what? Let's train once a week. And we got in there this morning, and then by the end of the session, we go, nah, this is 3 days a week. So I have a training partner for the first time, and man, I haven't had a consistent training partner in probably 10 years. I've had people I trained with, but not somebody that's like, okay, we're going to meet up and we're going to train. So,
wow, that's
um,
huge.
and he's one of the most educated people on movement on the planet. So we won't get caught doing stupid shit because that's what happens a lot of times when I train with other people. They're like, let's do hang cleans for time. I'm like, that's not going to be good for my body.
But I want to fit in, so let's
But
do it.
yeah, we gotta. I'm not going to do anything else. Yeah, so just be expected, folks. I'm going to add 5 pounds to my ass and 2 pounds to my
Just
traps.
the ass.
Mostly ass. That's mostly what we're doing. We're doing like a Brazilian butt lift training program. And don't worry, I'll be putting it out online for the low price of $5.97.
$5.97.
Yeah, yeah.
Like an OnlyFans type of situation.
So I got up at
Just
I woke up at
switched.
4. I got up out of bed at 4:20 this morning,
Uh-huh.
and the night before I had a hard time falling asleep, and I got up at like close to 5 a.m. the day before. I have gotten so excited about every day that I'm having a hard time sleeping at night, and in the moment I think I need to wake up, I'm out of bed. I don't know where this is
What is
going.
it that you're excited to go do? What is it that you're excited to do?
Just
Is it a non-specific excitement or is there a
no, non-specific. Just excited to be
wow.
awake, excited to be alive. Yeah, I've
Wow.
I've turned
That's
a strange
amazing.
corner. Yeah, yeah,
I notice it.
yeah,
I notice it. I mean, you're lifting weights. You have some sort of self-conscious complex about your butt size, but other than that, you seem really, really aware of what's happening.
yeah, yeah. I look at my butt in the mirror and I'm like, dude, I'm 41. I can't be letting this butt get flabby. I mean, by the time I'm 81,
Oh,
if I stay on this trajectory, it's not going to be good.
dude, just 1 minute sets of band around a single hip, pulling backwards, kickstand RDLs back and forth.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you
Need a
have a
little bit of
band.
distraction.
The band pulls you backwards, so you can even do it without a weight. But I'll usually do like a really heavy duty band and then like 100 pounds or something,
Mm-hmm.
and try to get 25 or 30 reps in a minute, and that'll toast those buns real good.
All right, all right. I'll throw it in the
Yeah,
mix. I'll actually
yeah.
pass it on to Ashley. She's looking for more size in the trunk.
Well, the butt's the biggest muscle in the body, and if you get someone's abs and butt strong, a lot of stuff just starts to work.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very funny that way. Someone's like, "Oh, my knee, my ankle, my foot." I'm like, "Okay,
Well, I got back pain. It's like, oh, your glutes
yeah,
aren't firing.
right."
Problem
They're
solved.
just weak. They're just not there. They're out to lunch.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I've been thinking. So if you have a pacifier, you don't go looking for tits, basically, right? Whether you're a baby, whether you're that's an adult metaphor, either way, right? If you are pacifying those desires, you won't go looking for the real thing. If you're constantly numbing yourself with whatever, you're not even going to give yourself a chance to embrace that creative side and that creative force, right? So, what is it that you have found to help people buy in to this idea of stripping all that away? Because
Well, you tell me. I
it's like
convinced you.
addiction. I just wanted to I just wanted to take whatever you did and do it a little bit more than that. That
Well, there's the
I
answer.
heard you
Who's going
I
to
heard you
compete with
talk
me?
about it, and I said, I think I can win this.
I can do better.
I can win. I can do better. That's right.
That's the
Uh,
motivation for a lot of stuff in my life. Like I would say every business I've ever started is I look around and I go, I could do that better. So I start the business to do it better.
right.
I don't always
So
do
it's back
every
to,
part better, but I do the part better that I see as the problem.
I was writing down the other day, the root of all your problems is in the root chakra because it's about sex and hierarchy. And so that whole idea of I can do better, it's a comparative thing because you want to be higher up in the hierarchy. And the whole point of a hierarchy is for sex and acceptance because that's what it's about, right?
I don't know. I've got the sex. I feel I've accepted myself. I think it's I had a conversation this past weekend. So I was um I was reflecting on uh like my past businesses, and I was with Barbell Shrug. I left in 2018, and on paper, and it looked really really successful, lots of money, lots of attention, all that. And I was I stressed the company out regularly by trying to do too much too fast. And I was stressing myself out that way too. But I realized in reflecting, I was sitting in meditation and then had a conversation, and I go, I think I saw the problem. I wanted it to change, but my ego was more interested in being known to be the person who made the change and made the improvement than to have actually made
Mm,
the improvement that I saw could be made. And
yep.
my experience now is I could care less if I'm known for making the difference, but now I'm very interested in actually making the difference. And I think a big part of that is just thinking generationally versus egotistically.
It's kind of like being a master teacher. It's so subtle that your students uh, look onto their work and say, "Wow, we did it all by ourselves." You help them get there, but they don't even notice that you were a part of it.
Right. Yeah, I'd
And
rather hang back in the
it's like,
scenes, behind the scenes.
well, and And I think you and I do a good job in conversation also. There's a microcosm of that, the way that it doesn't matter who's right as long as ultimately we're right.
Yeah.
Like that's the big thing. Like I don't care whose idea it was, as long as we choose the best one after after it's all said and done. This concept of
Well,
glory and exalting yourself, it's senseless.
well, I think I mean we talked about this before. Is like how do you have the attitude that we have now while also having the ambition to get it done? Because I find
To get what done?
to take action on the right answer.
Can you be more specific? You mean you just have to desire it, right?
Right. But I
Like
think,
if you want something,
well, there's like the surface level ambition, and then there's the deep ambition.
hmm,
Like the surface level
tell me
ambition
more
is
about that.
I wanna I want to achieve so that I'll be loved, and then
Hmm.
the deeper ambition is I want to. It's not even about achievement at that point. I want to achieve this thing outside of myself for for the greater good.
For the greater good. Okay.
Or just
But
maybe
if
because I enjoy it.
you need to have faith in it that it's important and belief that you can do it.
Yeah, I think that the fact that it's important or significant, like that, you have to
Right. It
believe that
has to
it's
matter.
actually is the right way to do it. Because when you look at
Well,
people out in the world, and the people who accomplish a lot are very convinced that they're right.
you have to be.
Yeah.
Think about a missionary who's like 50-50 on the religion that he's peddling. People of South America, I come bringing tidings of Christ the Lord. By the way, I'm not even really sure if this is true, but it seems pretty good. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah.
I
I mean,
feel like,
well, this
are
is
you are you kidding me?
that's a great example, because I mean that would describe me, right? It was like it's like
Yeah.
I think Christianity is a like overall a good idea. Like it's a good place to start. If more people adopted it, probably be pretty good. But at the same time, I'm like I don't I don't believe every aspect of it. So
That's how it all
there's
starts. That
no
little seedling of I think it would be good if more people did this, and then it's door to door flyers. Suddenly, you start bringing a sword along with you. You're sailing around the globe. You're like, I used to think this was a pretty good idea. Now I think it's a moral imperative.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's why when someone has an opinion, I always want to know what their level of conviction is. So you
Mhm.
see what they're willing to bet on it. That whole idea of if you pay attention. So if you're really willing to pay the price, and that's what successful people, it's hard to. I was trying to figure out what success really means.
Oh
I
no.
think of it more like you succeed at a task. It's like
Right.
the achievement of a mission. It's either mission success or mission failure. It's not this amorphous like I am successful,
Right.
like
As
a
a
moment in
identity.
time with a timestamp, and you're like, I am successful now. Um, I think people who achieve a lot of professional uh, missions, let's call it, people who reach a lot of milestones, people who like make a lot of money, people who get in very very good shape. It's all because they're willing to pay the price, and a lot of the time, their genetics has matched up with their activities, but they're willing to pay the price basically for it
Yeah.
because they believe it's important enough, and they're willing to make that trade.
Is there anything you're willing to pay the price for?
Almost nothing. Uh, but that's like the three levels of money, right? Uh, fuck it, fuck you, and fuck me.
Right.
And I don't have fuck you money, but I do have fuck it money. So in order for me to be moved to do something, there's got to be some sort of really big reward for that to happen. I have to believe it's really, truly important.
Or
And the
something really
more,
bad would happen if you didn't.
which is kind of the same thing. It's like, do you need to go slay the dragon because it's going to murder the townspeople? Or do you just want to go save the princess and find the buried treasure? It's the same sort of thing, right? There's gain to be had, or the prevention of loss.
So nothing's lighting the fire for you.
Mm, I've been writing a lot in my journal and exploring some of these ideas, like success, for example, the difference between success and a life well lived. And it's semantics. You decide for yourself. Is it legacy? Is it love? Is it collecting lots of experiences? And so I'm just jotting down all these ways that I've seen people interpret these ideas of being successful, being a success, living a good life. And, would you rather be Warren Buffett or the guy from Jiro Dreams of Sushi, or would you rather be a beach bum / lifeguard who surfs all the time and has never worried about tomorrow once? It's kind of nice that there are all those options available. That's what I think. Like, I don't know what's right for somebody.
Yeah, the beach bum lifeguard, that was where I wanted to go when I first got out of the Navy.
Mm.
Like, yep, I'll just go live simply. That didn't work.
There's a guy like that. I mean, I haven't heard of him. I wasn't close with him anyway, but I remember that guy seemed really stoked on life, living in a house with like 7 other dudes, just renting a room, working as a lifeguard and surfing. Nothing more complicated than that. And I can see where that would be maybe even more fun than starting Amazon and doing the Jeff Bezos strategy, where you're constantly analyzing what's going on or what's lacking. I realize that's kind of what being a contrarian is about, is you're always have this monologue of what's lacking, what's missing, what's wrong with this picture. And it makes you very good at troubleshooting, but it doesn't uh, necessarily perpetuate peace of mind and acceptance of what is. It's the exact opposite of acceptance of what is. It's like, oh, what is wrong, and and how can I change it?
I think we can marry the two though. It's like recognizing what's wrong. I think a lot of times people, they focus on what's wrong, but they don't. They're not actually present to what's true right now. Right? They have a partial truth. They're not. It's like somebody who is overweight and wants to lose weight. Right? They 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 know that something's wrong. They want to fix it, but they're afraid to step on the scale and look at what they actually weigh or do the BMI or
Mm.
whatever, or the not BMI, that's bullshit, but the get their body fat percentage measured, something like they're not willing to even entertain the reality of right now, even though they want the result in the future. I think that's where most people are at, is they're really good at complaining, but they're not actually present to what's this happens in politics and everything else. People have complaints, they want it to be better, but they can't actually ever get to the conversation where, well, what is happening right now? What is true right now? And because the focus on what is not true, or what is not true right now, is a lie. It's an illusion. It's a fantasy. Like anything in negation does not exist, and everything that does exist does exist, right? So the idea that in the future, this is a fantasy of how I want something to be different. But if you never, the most capable people are the ones that are incredibly present with what is actually happening right now and knows where to go. And then I imagine those people are much more process oriented, which probably means they're really happy, whether they're surfing or whether they're in a constant state of problem solving.
Mm.
So I think that being able to hold both of those at the same time, but most people they get some type of reward for just complaining about something not being the way they think it should be.
You hit the nail on the head right there at the end. It's a predictable pattern. So as soon as you find a predictable pattern that gives you a little bit of the reward that you're looking for, you'll probably do that the rest of your life, unless you are acted upon by an unbalanced force. Just like the law of momentum. As soon as you groove that predictable pattern, oh, when I yell, I get my way. When I cry, I get my way.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell people that I was sick, they say, "Oh, poor baby, you don't have to do any work. You were sick. That's fine. It's fine that you didn't do any work." And you're like, "Hey, that's pretty cool." I mean, look, when I was in school, I lied to almost every teacher I ever had. I was a little weasel, and I think I had like 40 grandparents die by the time I had uh, left high school, because they're not going to fact check you on that. They're not going to like call home and be like, "Hey, did Max's grandparent really die today?" You're just going to say, "No, I'm having a really hard time, and that's why I didn't study or do my homework or whatever." And that's what we do. Monkeys, we're just talking shit essentially to save calories. And as soon as you figure out that you can get away with something like that, it's effectively cheating. I mean, that's what language is. Language is long range manipulation, it's hands free manipulation. And of course, the word manipulation comes from the word for hand, which is manos.
Hmm.
So people, they try to get respect or street cred. What do you think about that?
What do I think about that?
Yeah, what do you think about that? I think that's something a lot of people want. Like they want to be respected. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah,
used to really care about that, and now I don't at all, and it seems really absurd.
yeah. I think that so receiving respect from somebody else is it's their responsibility to give you respect or not. It's not your responsibility. Like trust, respect, all these things are um they're not earned. They're either given or they're withdrawn. So
Hmm.
if um if I feel like I'm being disrespected, well, let's go with this first. Like trust or respect, that's either given or withdrawn. So I like that language because it puts it all on the other person. There's really nothing for me to do. Now, can my behavior have an impact on whether they give that to me or it's withdrawn? For sure. Um,
It's their judgment call, though,
yeah,
and they are the subject, and the verb is to trust or to respect. I respect you. I trust you.
yeah,
You're the object.
right, right. Yeah, you're the object, and
I'm like, I trust that thing. I respect that thing over there.
I trust that part of Max, but the other parts, eat. But the
Some of my parts are not trustworthy.
no, not for certain things. There's parts of me you
Not
don't
the
want doing
hands.
certain things.
You're very sneaky.
Very sneaky. I've heard this in between couples, right? I feel like you don't respect me, and or you're being disrespectful to me right now, and that's a couple in an argument, and that's a projection. That's making up a story about the intentions of the other person,
Oh, totally.
and if you I've seen this live when because I've been in relationship retreats where there's an argument and there's a moderator and all this stuff, and when you get to like oh, were you intending to disrespect them with the way your behavior or your words? They're like, no, I was trying to love them. And so this idea that, and it's so convincing, and it just totally hijacks somebody's experience. They get associated with the and believe the idea that a person they love is disrespecting them, that they just lose all control, and the other person didn't even intend that. So it's an experience that's only happening for you. It can't be validated by anyone outside of yourself. So being feeling respected or not is really just about, you're the only one that can give it to you in a way that is going to stick.
Well, and why do you want it in the first place? Like, what's your concern with being
Yeah,
respected or
what's it mean
accepted
if you're not respected?
by other folks? Right. I mean, respect is just an exalted form of accepted, and that's back to the tribe. You want to be accepted into the tribe, or you want to be respected in the tribe, which is just a few rungs higher, I think. Like, okay, you can be in the club versus, oh, you're really good and in the club.
Yeah, well, a term, a phrase just popped in my mind. Like I'm thinking about adults that to have these conversations, and it's like they should respect me. Like shooting on someone else's, yeah, uh, how
That's
they
a funny
perceive you
one.
is very interesting, very very
And
interesting.
just think about how much a person who's deeply craving respect is going to fake in order to get it.
They're
And
gonna
they're going to
fake,
create this, yeah, they're going to create this avatar that is nothing like how they feel inside, because respect is more important than authenticity, right?
mm,
And I almost hesitate to even use the word authenticity, because I feel like I'm writing a self-help book for 14-year-old girls now. But
no, it's popular amongst 35-year-old men too.
okay, well,
Which
I'm
the emotional capacity for the 35-year-old man is pretty close to what a 14-year-old girl was when we were kids. So,
probably way less,
you know.
but but honestly, when I think of that word, I don't even really know what it means, because once you strip all of the stuff away, which I've been doing this, I don't know, past few years, and also this past week in an accelerated format, there's really not much there. The more clear you get, the more you realize that these things are just these, like, they're just these blobs that you've attached to your identity because you thought they would look nice. They're mostly ornamental.
Yeah,
Almost all of that stuff that you're like, oh, that's just how I am. I don't do this and I don't do that and I like this. And it's like, most of the time you just like how that made your avatar appear to everybody else.
right.
And it's not even intrinsically fun.
Are you familiar with internal family systems, IFS?
Only from you.
Got it. Yeah, someone who's doing like IFS work, right? Uh, it's also called parts work, and the idea is that the average American walking around, if we were to really get into some analysis over a several week period, we may uncover 20 to 30 parts of yourself where you go, oh, that part of me shows up in this situation, is in charge of this. There's this part, there's like the brother, there's
Mm,
the son, there's the business owner, the coach, whatever it is.
mm,
And so, uh, but also like a part may be, you know, the the angry asshole, or you can name a part, like it could be just anything that represents who you think you are in a moment. And uh the idea is all these parts are playing a role. They're all learned behaviors. Like all of them are learned
mm.
behaviors.
Right.
And so, and I'm going into my own interpretation of this. So if someone's an IFS expert, I'm going to deviate. I just use it as a model on how I like to triangulate these things. But uh,
Just makes you sound smart
I'll use the big
to throw
words.
that out there first.
Yeah.
I learned this from some other smart people, so believe me.
I learned some stuff from some smart people, and then I put my own spin on it. So, you know,
There you go.
but there's the true self. It's like all these spiritual teachings. Um, you know, different spiritual teachings have different names for it, but in IFS they call it the compassionate observer, and that's the you that is observing, that's watching. And when I think about authenticity, that is that's the only thing that is authentic. If you're coming from a place of compassionate observer in all the parts, doesn't mean that they don't exist. It just means that they're not the ones running the show. And so if I'm being authentic, that means that I'm not necessarily trying to control other people and manipulate, as you were talking about before. And most people have no idea that they're even doing that. So I think there is an opportunity to be authentic, but I think what most people consider to be authentic is not. Um, there's this self-expression movement that I've been witnessing for the last decade in personal development, where people are being encouraged to be authentically express themselves. Some programs do it better than others, but there's one program in particular where I witnessed a lot of people go through it, and then I was invited into it, like, oh, you get to do this too, and I was like, I don't like the results. Y'all, it's like you got the self expression part down, but you don't have the compassion part down. You're you're basically projecting your wounds all over the place, which is causing disturbances all around you.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Most people see authenticity as now I don't even have to filter my traumatic idiosyncrasies. I'm just going to unleash them on everybody.
Yeah, I have emotional
You,
wounds,
you,
and you got to deal with it, motherfucker. Like,
and in fact, I am those wounds, and I'm going to amplify them and get on the loudspeaker and wear it on my sleeve now. And it's like, is this better? I mean, I guess you're expressing something.
yeah. Well, it's really a lot. A lot of people experience it as a good thing because, and especially women, because when you do start expressing yourself, even if it is from a wounded place, a lot of times they make more money. They become there's a
Hmm.
sense of empowerment. The part of you that was doubting, that creates self doubt, takes a back seat. So there's like all these perceived benefits that are happening, and I think they're real
Hey, the squeaky
benefits.
wheel gets the grease. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yeah, and then they're running around like, causing fires in all their relationships while they're, making more money and feeling empowered.
Yeah, it can happen.
Yeah, seen it
I
happen too
noticed
many
that,
times. So many times I've become quite vocal about it, but I never mention the specific training that creates those results because I
yeah,
don't want to be that
it,
guy. Most personal
that
development
compassion.
programs don't last.
I mean, most fitness programs are catastrophically bad, but it is usually better than nothing.
Yeah,
You were saying before that compassionate observer. It reminds me of Untethered Soul, Power of Now, Be Here Now,
absolutely.
Eckhart Tolle, Ram Dass, those guys, and that's the idea that there aren't problems, there are only situations. There's just here and now. You're just watching it all happen, and the idea of a compassionate observer is cool because usually the last person people turn their compassion toward is themselves, right?
Hmm.
People have compassion for others oftentimes a little bit sooner, but then that was definitely the case for me. I've always had this idea, oh, you should know better. You should know better than to make that mistake or do that wrong thing. But I have a lot more leeway for other people a lot quicker as I didn't used to give anybody an inch of compassion. I thought everybody should already know better.
Well, the
and
closer
and
they get to
now,
you too, like
yeah.
the stranger, I have so much. They get way more. Their leash is way longer with me than my partner.
Yeah.
My partner, she gets a little bit longer leash than I do, but
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of people like to think that it should be the other way around, but I don't think it's ever the case.
I mean, some people believe they can do no wrong and only other people do wrong things. But I would say
You're right. There is a lot of delusion.
that's an interesting character. I notice that I have become more aware, and I've noticed aspects of myself exaggerated in other people. The more I am observing the way people are and not judging them, the more I go, oh, that's an exaggerated form of this part of myself or this uh, archetype. And it's very interesting. You can almost see reflections of yourself in every single person you meet
I,
because it is all just a spectrum of give and take, on and off, abundance and scarcity, fear and love, right?
yeah, I've had that happen. I've seen, somebody that's portraying a specific characteristic, and I witness it, and I judge it, and for a moment, and then I go, how do I do that? If that's bothering me, then it's probably something that there's a part of me that does that too. And I've lost weeks before where I'm like, oh shit, like am I doing that thing? Am I doing that thing? Am I, because it's so
Mm,
annoying to me. And then it's probably more exaggerated in the other person, but then it just gets put on loudspeaker for myself. And then my perception of how I'm being that way is amplified, and that can be really painful.
yeah, and a lot of times you'll get the lesson by seeing it in someone else, and then it'll bring light to the aspect of that in yourself, whereas before it was kind of in the dark.
Yeah.
It reflects the image of that aspect of yourself, and you're like, oh, I see it now,
Hmm.
where you didn't see it before.
Right.
I mean, it's so much easier to see through a window than into a mirror when it comes to self-awareness or just awareness in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
And then if you get the microscope out, you can see everybody's all the little flaws. And you're just in the microscope and you're like, "Oh, here's another thing wrong with this person. Here's another thing wrong with that person. This is off about that." And meanwhile, you haven't looked up to look in the mirror one time. You just are in the microscope looking at everybody else's stuff.
Yeah. This
Mm.
makes me think of one of the most empowering things that I witnessed in myself and other people is when they come to the realization that everyone is terrified of everybody else. Like you walk into a room, you're like, "Oh, I feel uncomfortable," and then you imagine, you're the only one that feels uncomfortable and disconnected from everybody. But the reality
Mm.
is, everybody else in the room has also got some type of narrative running that of discomfort. And I think that putting your attention on other people and realizing how uncomfortable they are, it pulls the attention off of you, and then all of a sudden you become comfortable and easy to get
Yeah.
along with and attractive and all these things.
Love, power, attention. That's what people want. And they'll do almost anything to get it. And uh, it's it's one of those things where I can talk to someone about this. We can have a conversation about it. We can get curious. And then also sometimes you just got to play a little bit and not be talking about stuff. Sometimes you just got to get back into your body and play with a ball or do a little bit of roughhousing or something. I think as I've gotten more experienced as a coach, I can I can see when it's valuable to talk with someone about something going on in their life that they're really uncomfortable about, upset, sad, scared, etc. Or just go, you need to push the sled and pull the sled for 10
Hmm.
minutes. You need to do a little play fighting, or we should just throw the ball and bop the ball back and forth or do something like that for a bit. Um, and knowing when to do which of those things, because there is tremendous growth to be had by journaling and getting curious about the origin of these things that you want. And sometimes you just got to get out of your head and get back into your body. And the best way to do that is to play. And if you have a playmate, it's like worth its weight in gold. You know, you have a training partner now. So you could get push hands, you could get some Greco-Roman lifts going. It's like Greco-Roman wrestling, but you don't slam each other to the ground. You just lift the person's legs up and then reset. And you can throw a medicine ball at each other or to each other. You can learn how to do some stick fighting. There's all kinds of stuff you can do where you're not in your head anymore. You just back into your body, and that's where you see whatever authenticity might be spring out of people. It's really interesting to watch the difference when people are playing a game or playing with a ball versus talking about what's going on. It's almost like two different people.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're talking only goes so far. I think the value in talking is just to help satisfy the mind and whatever it is it needs to hear or say in order to feel safe so that you can be in the body or the somatic experience of what's going on.
Mm.
Like all the study of like these intellectual ideas about how the mind works. At the end of the day, I as a coach, I just keep on coming back to how do I make the mind feel so safe that it puts its guard down and now we can talk to the body.
Right. And if dividing things up into tinier and tinier specific pieces really worked, then we wouldn't have most of the country extremely physically and mentally ill, right?
Right.
It's almost less important what is true and more it's less important what's true, more important what's useful.
Mm-hmm.
And then speaking of religion again, is Mormonism or Judaism or Scientology absolutely true? I don't know. Probably not.
Probably
But
Scientology. That's
look at
my
me
favorite one.
blaspheming over here. I'm a blasphemous bastard. But it's clearly useful. That's cool. So why even worry if it's useful? You know, the only reason you should stop it is if you find something that's more useful. Right?
I
I'm a
agree. That's why I tell people like Ashley's asked me before. She's like, well, "What do you believe?" I'm like, "I try not to. Like, I know very little, and I try to believe even less. And but sometimes I like to pretend like I believe something just to see what it does for my life. So
hmm,
I've got a lot of these
I don't
little
know if I
things that
buy it, folks. Do you guys buy it? I don't buy it.
I am describing my attempt.
I
I
think it's all an act to sound cool right now.
totally, totally. It gets the ladies, you know. That's
I believe it's important to do this podcast. I think it's valuable. You know what I find is funny though? I will fall into this zone where I really forget that there might be people listening to this, which is probably
I do too.
why I say such outlandish shit. And I'll notice that 30 minutes have gone by and I haven't considered how I might be able to help a listener. But I think part of the reason is like what can we really do? You know, we can have all of these ideas here, but ultimately a person is either going to hear something, it's going to spark some inspiration, be some kind of catalyst, and then they're going to go do something cool
Totally.
or not.
I recognized
And
this when I
and
was. Go ahead.
oh, that's it.
Yeah, and I recognized this when I was podcasting. It was when I was doing Barbell Shrugged, and I noticed I was like, oh yeah, the I started interviewing all these coaches about why their method worked, right? Oh, what's your method? Oh, what's your method? okay. And then I'm like, and having studied exercise science, I'm like, yeah, I mean, your method works because your method actually lines up with the principles of strength and conditioning. It makes sense. And
Right.
and then, but a lot of people who are applying this method aren't getting the same results. And I go, huh. And I was like, okay, what we want to, if you want to create your own method, you have to understand the principles, right? So that's good to know. But there's a level beyond principles that I started gathering. So first it was gathering methods, and then I'm like, all right, let's gather more principles. Let's go deeper. And then the level deeper from studying principles is studying how someone is being. So I got really interested in how different coaches that were getting great results for their clients, how they were being. And I realized that without any effort from myself, I actually got to experience their being for a period of time. Sometimes a half day, whole day, 2 or 3 days at a time, depending on how much time we were spending with that that guest, and a lot of times on their own turf. So I got to be in their gym, at their
Mm,
house, in their town, and
right.
I got to basically lease their frequency. Right, I was in the frequency of Louis Simmons, for instance,
Sounds
and
like a good business to be in. Frequency leasing.
yes, but that's what we're doing here. So I think that as much as you go, oh, I don't know if I've said anything that I can directly attribute a 1, 2, 3 process to somebody to improve. I think that if you're interested in how you and I think, just hanging out and listening to the conversation, you're unconsciously going to be you're leasing that frequency, and you're people are likely getting a benefit. So I don't think I like to try to be helpful, but I don't think it's that hard. I think for most people, they don't have to work as hard as they think they do in order to be helpful to others too.
Yeah, I think it makes the podcast a little more clunky also if we're always trying to be like, "Oh, hey, wait. Let us save you real quick.
I've got
Hey,
a
we got
piece
to
of
save all the
wisdom for
listeners.
you,
Yeah,
dumbass.
let me show you guys, you poor bastards, how smart and clever I am. And then tell me I'm good, would you? Yeah, tell me I'm good." It's
send,
like
send me a DM. Pump my ego up. Every time I get a DM, I'm like, "Hey, Ashley, I got another fan. Loves the show."
guess who's good, baby? Like, I mean, take a day like today. Here we are closing out. Maybe we're going to go strong for another hour. You never know. We got time. But most of what we've said is just inane babble. And the only thing I really noticed that was really notable was that there was a level beyond principles. I thought that's so cool. I'd never thought of that before. Methods to principles. I totally get it. Uh, that idea has been in my brain for many years. I never thought about going into the individual being and the frequency and thing like that. And I think that even if a person doesn't really follow the the best principles or the best methods, but if they have that insane drive of being where they let themselves become molded by the method that they're going through. It does, even if your technique at running is not very good, but you give everything you have to it. If your technique in basketball is not very good, but you are just constantly working to improve it, and you are in an environment that is conducive to you always being in that mind of get better at basketball or hone your skill, I think that's often more. I've seen that tons of times. Really bad. How many amazing athletes do the worst training you've ever
Oh
seen?
yeah.
It like makes no sense. Like why are you having these 7 foot tall people do back squats? Like what
Why?
for? Who
Yeah, I
but
mean,
yeah, so that's
it.
that's what I harvested from today.
Yeah.
3 words.
You want to
That's
be,
pretty good.
if you want to be a successful investor, so many people go and buy investing courses online and never figure it out. But if you go in a room full of 100 investors and you make a few friends and you start hanging out with them on the weekends, you're probably going to become an investor and you'll probably do pretty good. And you'll probably pick up some advice and they'll point you in the right direction on what strategies to do and this and that. But really, it's about being in the frequency. So just put yourself in the room with people, have a conversation. That's going to be your best bet. And this is coming from this is one reason I like how I do things is because it's like very coaching centric. Not I don't like to do too many courses by themselves. For personal development work anyway. I think that's a little more necessary.
Monkeys mimic, so you got to be careful who you idolize, right? That whole idea of worshiping false idols. It's very easy to get caught into a different ecosystem just because you're like, oh, I like that guy. That guy's good. And now you try to become like that guy. And suddenly you're on this path that takes you into I'm a power lifter, for example. I don't know why I bag on it so much. It's not fair. I feel like powerlifting is like the whipping boy for my like exercise
Yeah, you
silliness.
should pick something that's a little bit harder to whip on. You're being lazy.
Oh man. That's too funny. Whatever,
Sorry,
dude. I
powerlifters.
am lazy. I like to go for the easy targets. Yeah. Let me just go try to attack the really healthy, robust, fastest gazelle in the pack. I won't go for the sick little baby. What am I? What am I, an idiot?
Oh, I think that's it for the show. Thanks for joining us today, folks. Make sure to go over to maxshank.com. Anything new and special happening over there? Or is it just the same special it
it's all
always
new.
is?
It's all new.
It's all new. The whole site?
It's all new.
Everything.
Everything is new.
Wow. You know what? On thestrongcoach.com, it's all new too. It's just
Yeah.
all new stuff.
Brand new.
Actually,
Especially if you've never been there before. It's brand new.
I did rebuild the site a couple weeks ago, so it looks really cool. People want to go check it out.
Proud of you.
Put some free stuff on there. Stuff that I've never revealed to the public for free before. You know, the top secret stuff.
That's a big juicy carrot.
Yeah. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. Love you, brother.
Love you, brother. Love y'all. Bye.